It's just weird to get milk from an almond. Like, how do you milk an almond?
How do you milk an almond?
And no, you can't milk me.
Milk a cat?
Yeah, just little bit. Not the hand motion. Well, welcome to Bonus Features, our podcast where we have time to get into the details that we didn't quite have time to touch on Sunday. My name is Caroline, and I am joined today by Pastor Kevin. And he brought the word yesterday on Micah.
Yes.
And what are we calling you now? The resident
Jason.
expert. Oh, Jason. That's right. That's.
I'll tell you what we're calling him today.
Oh, the birthday
boy. All right. Happy birthday.
It's great. I love all the attention.
That's all I've got
Yeah.
for singing.
He,
We're so excited for you.
It does make me feel good that you sang to me because
Listen,
I've never heard you sing to anyone.
Listen,
Yeah.
I don't sing to many
Unless you're singing Daisy Jones. I don't know if he's singing anything.
people. Yes.
But
Or
you are-
90s country. I'll sing that to you all day long.
All day.
Hey,
Honestly, I walked into this room and you guys were belting out some sort of
hey,
heinous
Pastor Jason,
throwback.
some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. I don't know if you know that or not. That's just for you. If you know, you know. All right.
I
If you're
don't
a 90s
know.
country fan, you know.
That's good.
Well, you're our resident expert. We used to call you the nerd. Somebody then told us that was rude. So, but you're the one who brings all the good info. So, Pastor Jason joining us as well. So we're back, episode 1 of season 5. I feel like this is the point in a show where you're like, man, I'm really in for it. Or it's like, oh, I don't know that I'm
Season
actually.
5?
Season 5. Like,
Yeah.
you're not in season 5 if you're just like kicking the tires of a show. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's also where most of them get canceled, right?
Or killed off. Hopefully we don't get killed off. I mean, there's always that option.
Culturally speaking, I hope we don't get canceled either.
Oh, yeah, that too.
That's good. This is good. You just went a whole nother level. I was talking TV. You just went
Yeah.
cultural on me.
Yeah, I was talking about like not getting picked up for another season.
Right.
The good news is that we have many more books of the Bible to go. So hopefully in that alone will sustain our seasons just a little bit. But yeah, I mean last season we talked about being on IMDb. We're a big deal. We have fans coming up to us these days.
About that.
Are we on IMDb?
Yep, we sure
We are.
What?
Oh.
Yep.
Really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, so somebody told us last season, if you guys haven't watched, you can go back. BingeTheBible.org I just found out was a thing. That's a whole website that's
yeah.
got all of the old messages and all that because we're obviously going to
Great
start.
resources.
It is, yeah. Reading plans, all that good stuff. So BingeTheBible.org.
I'm looking up IMDb. I almost had to ask you, how do I spell that? So, sorry.
It's all right.
It's Monday. It's Monday.
it
We're
is.
recording this on a Monday.
Monday all day. But yeah, somebody last season was like, did you guys know that you're on IMDb? And I was like, no. That's great. Mariska
No way.
Hargitay's on IMDb.
It was
That's all I
super
need
cool,
to know.
and I was like, I felt like somebody was stealing my identity at the same time.
No, I'm about it.
Seeing it.
Yeah, the people
it
that are
is.
like, I'm going to turn my camera off. My best friend is like, I don't have my Face ID on my phone because I don't want my phone to know and like be watching me all the time. And I was like, oh, no. I turn all the robots in my house on so they're constantly listening to me.
And the bad
So I
news
think
is
it's
they
great.
already know.
That's awesome. Hey, I need an affordable rug for my
I
living
like
room.
feeling the conspiracy theory fire. I love to see those guys going.
Yeah. But no, I'm all about being on IMDb. I'm like, track me. I don't, not to my house. That's maybe a little
Great. I
weird.
feel like we made it.
I think so
It's only
too.
got season 1, though. We need to
Yeah,
get
somebody update that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever
you are out there.
IMDb.
Put our info in.
The IMDb wizards.
Yeah. Is it run by wizards?
Sure.
Sure.
Everything
I sure don't know who
internet-based
runs
is
it.
run by wizards.
Wizards.
Can I make that statement?
That feels real.
I like it. All
Support that.
right.
Okay, well, Micah. We've kicked off this season with Micah. It was a great message, Pastor Kevin. We really enjoyed that.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah.
Good.
It was fun.
If you guys missed it, definitely go back and make sure you watch that. It'll be where podcasts are streaming and all of that good stuff. I don't know. Wherever you find things on the internet, that's where it is.
Well, and one thing to note about this season in particular, and we'll get more into this later on, but I want to say it while we're at the beginning in case somebody is kind of deciding if they should continue to listen or watch. Just to give you a little nugget, later on we are going to be discussing end times prophecy and how it pertains. Because this whole season, every book we covered this season of Binge the Bible pertains to end time prophecy. And so it's kind of crazy. Just to give a little backstory there quickly, because a lot of people are like, oh, is this your way of engaging current events? Yes and no,
Yeah.
because this wasn't planned. This went into planning, actually, when we were planning season 4. How we planned the books for season 4 was like, we're like, oh, you know what? If we did these 5 books together for season 5, we could do like an apocalypse theme and talk about end times. We had no idea that the current events would be happening in Israel and all over the world. So it's just crazy timing. It lets you know that there is a creator that's in charge. So it's just kind of cool how it happens. But for now, jumping in, PK, I told you this morning earlier. I thought you crushed it. I mean, these are hard books to like encapsulate in one service, which is why we have bonus features. But I thought you crushed it in the flow, and so I know there's still some stuff that you wanted to talk about heading into bonus features.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime, I think the way I communicated it to you is like on Friday, Saturday especially, it was like a hatchet job on my notes. I mean, you're just having to cut stuff out because, there's so much to talk about, but there's only so much time on a Sunday. And on that platform, there's only so many ways you can say things. Like you're casting to a pretty wide net. And so you've got to just kind of think through it. And I mean, even some of the prophetic stuff that we'll touch on today, like you could do an entire sermon about, you could do an entire series just about that one idea. So it's difficult to kind of weave that in and almost say, all right, that's it, we're moving on. So and again, some of that we'll talk about. But yeah, yesterday, we just to kind of give a bit of an overview, I guess, if we're wanting to jump on in. So the book, I kind of broke it up into 3 sections. Most scholars or theologians you studied will kind of do the same thing. And the sections are the first few chapters, which is really about the destruction of Jerusalem and Samaria. Then you get into the next couple of chapters, and that's more about restoration. That's where most of that end times kind of prophecy lives. There's a little bit in the first section. Most of it's kind of in the second. And then the final couple of chapters are sort of this more intense courtroom scene. And it's where some of the more memorable verses, really there's one main memorable verse out of Micah that we kind of pull from in Christendom. And so that's where that comes from. And so where I spent the majority of the time was in the third section. All of our takeaways came out of that. I spent a little bit of time in the second section. Really, the first section, we didn't have much time to get into at all. Mm-hmm. And it really is talking about the destruction of Samaria, Jerusalem, and just how the people of God, now split up into 2 kingdoms, are essentially just not obeying God. They're following, and we can dive into this, but they're following 2 different groups of people. Mm-hmm. One, they're forced to follow. The other, they're kind of like, I would say, following by feel. The one they're forced to follow are these oppressive kings and really the leadership around the kings. Yeah. And Micah, I kind of mentioned this yesterday, comes from sort of a small town and an agricultural community. And his demographic of people were some of the more oppressed. Like, think high taxes, think like land ownership issues where like the kings and the rulers are oppressing those kind of people. They're taking advantage of the people that are easy to take advantage of. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they're forced to follow that crooked leadership. And then they're choosing to follow false prophets. And the false prophets are sort of saying things that the people want to hear. And the people they're latching onto it. They like it. And so that's really the first few chapters kind of like summarize that to a degree. One of the things that I read yesterday in that, and kind of this speaks a little bit to end times as well. And I mentioned this, and we'll talk about this, Pastor Jason, that how Micah does what some of the other prophets do that we're going to study in this season is he talks about 2 different kinds of futures. One is like a near future. Near could be 500 years from now. Like it not necessarily near as in like tomorrow, but then apocalyptic future, like far future, biblical end times future. Yeah. And so this is one of those passages where he's talking about, in verse 3 of chapter 1, look, the Lord is coming from his dwelling place. He comes down and treads the high places of the earth. The mountains melt beneath them. The valleys split apart like wax before the fire, like water rushing down from a slope. And then I didn't read this, but in verse 5, all of this is because of Jacob's transgression, because of the sins of the house of Israel. And he just kind of goes from there. And so it's first few chapters are tough.
Yeah, they're intense.
They're tough, man. Yeah.
Well, but I do love that language that you have near future and far future. And I told you, I think of the account from Sesame Street, near, far. I'm not good at that accent. But I like that those kind of those.
Hang on,
those
that's the
visual.
Tootsie Roll lollipop guy. How many looks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll?
Yeah, those visuals help me a lot, and just to give a little I guess to be a little more open with this. This is my least area of study in the Bible. Like, I love history, I love theology. When it comes to like the specific theology of eschatology, which is the study of end times, I'm not as like well read. And it's honestly, it's because it overwhelms me. And so that kind of language, putting it in perspective, you've got near future prophecies, it kind of helps a lot.
Yeah.
And it kind of dumbs it down a little because you can see that there's immediate prophecy. Like for them, it could have been like, we know this now, they didn't know this then. They were getting ready to go into like 400 years of silence after these next few books of the Bible. And there wouldn't be any more like prophets until you see John the Baptist on the scene and Jesus coming up. And so it's just kind of cool how that kind of worked. But that imagery, I think, helps a lot. But one of the things I even noticed in chapter 1 as well was even in the first verse where it says, the vision he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. Most prophets, they were speaking either to the northern kingdom or the southern kingdom. He spoke to both. And we find out later that he was speaking to the southern kingdom more so because of the northern kingdom's sin, but he was roping them together. And so what I like about Micah's prophecy in this whole book is he's essentially unifying the kingdom again. Yeah. In God's sight, he's unifying the kingdom. So what man divided, God is unifying. And then we even see that when what you were just reading. What is Jacob's transgression? Right. Transgression is when it's a violation of trust. And so Jacob had violated trust with God and was going to make his own way. And then we see turmoil in his home with Ishmael and Isaac. And that relates to what we're going to talk about a little later with even what's happening now. But that turmoil, he divided his family. He split his family. And we would see that turmoil come. So I love that Mike has put everything back into perspective of unity.
Yeah. And it's interesting. He talks about this in verse 5. You read it. All this is because of Jacob's transgression, because of the sins of the house of Israel. And then he talks about what is Jacob's transgression. Is it not Samaria? What is Judah's high place? Is it not Jerusalem? And then he says, I will make Samaria a heap of rubble, not Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And so even there, just seeing that, to your point, like he's essentially saying, hey, what you guys have built, like the kingdom that you've built is coming down. Yeah. The one kingdom's going to remain, and that's Jerusalem.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
So yeah, to me, there's just a lot in that first section, first 2-3 chapters that really get into this. I would say, to jump ahead a little bit, chapter 2, he spends some time talking to the false prophets, and just kind of like he says to them, lately my people have risen up like an enemy. You strip off the rich robe. For those who pass by without a care, like men returning from battle. You drive the women of my people from their pleasant homes. You take away my blessing from my children forever. And essentially what he's saying is you've led people astray, and you've robbed their blessing from them. So he comes down really tough on the false prophets. The next chapter, he does the same thing, but he does it with the leadership. And he kind of weaves the false prophets in there again, but he talks about, and this really has implications for the end of the book, but in chapter 3, verse 1, he says, listen, you leaders of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel, so that you know justice. And that theme of justice comes up throughout this book. Mm-hmm. And the book even being kind of like a courtroom vibe to it, justice is kind of that theme. And he sort of exposes it there that like they don't know justice according to God's way. They know it. And most of us, when we think about justice, it's the world according to the way we want it, instead of biblical justice, which he kind of points to at the end of the book. So he just calls a lot out in those first 3 chapters.
Yeah, and it's kind of busy with the way he kind of runs in, but I do love to where, like you already mentioned, there are little tidbits of prophecy in these first few, and we see he even mentions in chapter 2 in verse 12, talking about Jacob again, but this is an instance where we see it's a mixture of near and far prophecy. I will surely gather all of you, Jacob. I will surely bring together the remnant of Israel. I will bring them together like sheep in a pen, like a flock in its pasture. The place will be thronged with people. The one who breaks open the way will go up before them. And I love that. I mean, we're still seeing that now. Mm-hmm. And then just to put this in there, because we're talking about how to look at prophecy in the Bible. The way I see it, we're reading everything. It kind of reminds me of when I used to play video games. Like back in the day, I know you probably played like Contra, or some people played Metroid on Nintendo. Caroline's like, what's a Nintendo? But you're looking at it on a two-dimensional. You're looking at it on a two-dimensional screen. Like Duck Hunt tried to be three-dimensional, it's still 2D. But then if you jump into like a PS4 or a newer Xbox or a Nintendo Switch, like everything is like 3D and moving around, and I get a little motion sick because I'm old. But that's kind of the way prophecy is. Like, we're looking at everything through two-dimensional eyes, and we're not able to see that fourth-dimensional move. And so it's over time. It's not something that's just happening tomorrow. It's something that could happen 400 years from now, like you said, but it could also be 400 years and then another 1,000 and then another 500 and then another 2 and then, and it kind of goes on, because what God is saying, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. And where I say I'm going to be faithful, I will be faithful.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, some of that dimension is time.
Yeah.
And we think about things in terms of our concept of time, or our concept of like how long a lifetime is or a generation is. But we're talking about generations that date back hundreds, thousands of years.
Yeah.
So when God speaks of kingdoms, if earthly kingdoms last hundreds of years, thousands of years, heavenly kingdoms are infinite. And so really, even that concept of time is just different. It's different. And we do get kind of like, we camped out on, we're living in the end times. I've heard that ever since I got saved. And it was not until probably 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know if I heard this somewhere. This was not my own revelation, so I probably heard it somewhere. But ever since Jesus ascended to heaven, we're in the end times. Like, it's not like that started somewhere. It's like when he left, they were looking for him to come back. Like, it was pretty immediate.
Yeah.
And so everything we're seeing now, obviously there's things that will have been prophesied and predicted for the end times, but we're in it.
Yeah.
We're in it. It's not, I've heard people say like, do you think we're in? Yes, we are in it. We've been in it for a long time. And so, but just kind of seeing it that way, and letting, not that some of the things that are in the Bible are normal, but normalize the fact that we are in the end times. Wars and rumors of wars have been for a long time, will be for a long time. Like, it's part of the broken, sin-filled world we live in until Jesus comes back.
Well, and sometimes unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally, I feel like people weaponize the idea of end times. It's like, well, we got to use that as something to manipulate people to do something or whatever. And it's like, well, we're in the end times, or this is definitely it's like, we don't, all you need to do is you need to follow the Lord, and you need to do what he's telling you to do. Like, you don't need to use that as a tactic to get people to do X number of things that you feel that they should be doing.
We probably all have these war stories, but I remember we were on a missions trip. This was like, so I got saved when I was like 18, 19. So this was probably like early high school for me, and I somehow went on a missions trip with a church my friend went to, and we're in Florida, like building stuff. I don't know what we were doing. We were going to Disney World. That was part of it, was we were going to Disney World. So before we got to Disney World, we go to this like midweek Bible study at this church, Central Florida, small church. They were just like passionate, and whoever was in charge taught on hardcore end times. It was like stuff that's meant to like scare the blank out of you, the HE double hockey sticks, right? And so they did, man. I'm like crying, thinking, what does this mean? I rededicated my life, all this stuff. And like, to your point, like sometimes it's kind of, it's a thing that strikes fear, and it's a thing that, and I do think it's something that when we have perspective of what the end times will be like, and we'll jump into this now, but like the millennial reign of Jesus, when we think about that and the fact that only believers are a part of that, right? So like, yeah, it does create some urgency, it really does. And I feel like that's healthy. Yeah. What's healthy is not the fear. Mm-hmm. And, but a healthy fear, a reverence of it. Yeah. But, yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge.
And I definitely had mine. I remember we watched. It wasn't a youth group. I don't even know if I was in the youth group yet. It was a Sunday school, and my Sunday school class was on spiritual warfare in the end times.
Yes.
So it was awesome. But we watched a movie from the 70s called A Thief in the Night.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, it scared the daylights out of me. In fact, I would wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning. I would run to my sister's room. Is she still there? I would run to my parents' room. Are they still there? And like, everybody's still here. I'm going to go back to bed now. And this happened for like weeks. And
I don't know anything about this movie.
All right, so it's a movie, and in the movie, like they say the rapture has happened, so all the believers have disappeared from the earth. and the Antichrist comes in and they're persecuting Christians. Well, they didn't just persecute them; they arrested them and then cut their head off with a guillotine. And so I'm like,
Sick.
I don't want my head to be cut off by guillotine. I can't do.
That'd be a quick way, at least.
Yeah.
It would be
Is that
quick.
not the point? I don't think that's the
Right.
point.
Anyway, just being so young, and I was left without a lot of context.
Yeah.
It spurred me on later on to do a lot of study and to dive in, and I did develop that sense of urgency to preach the gospel and tell people what God was doing for me and the love I had for Jesus. But it also there was a lot I had to do to take away the fear of the uncertainty of tomorrow. And that's one of the reasons I love a book like Micah. It allows you to start slowly stepping into end time prophecy, but he also gives you what we're supposed to do in light of this judgment that we can't dodge, in light of the age that we live in. We still have a job, and this is where we focus and allow God to do what God can do, and we do what we can do.
Yeah.
And I love the perspective.
No, that's good. And you read the verses. I'm not going to reread them, and I just didn't have time to get into this yesterday, but in the middle of this first section that's about destruction and judgment, there is deliverance. There's a promise. There's hope. And so God's character consistently comes through. It's been this way in prophets we've read up to this point in Binge the Bible. It's been this way in you go all the way back to the book of Judges, through the Kings, that when terrible things were happening, God always was consistent to say, this is bad, you're going to be judged, but there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. And so I appreciate that in chapter 2 as well.
Yeah.
After that, we moved into kind of the second section. And Pastor Jason, this is really where we'll probably dive into most of our conversation, or at least the weighty parts of it. But the second section is about restoration. And so Micah talks about two different kinds of restoration. One is actually, so the nation of Israel, mainly the northern kingdom, was going to be just trounced by the Assyrian Empire. So one of the promises, kind of that near future promise, is you're going to be restored. Captivity will be broken, all those things. But then there was the distant future, and that was kind of the longer term promise of a kingdom being restored. That's where I spend a little bit of time. To me, it's the more, not that both aren't interesting, but it's the one that's kind of more speaks to the end times and those kind of things. And that's when he talks about what's called the millennial reign of Jesus. What we get in Micah, and it starts in chapter 4. And I'll read this, and then we'll talk for a minute about it. But it says, in the last days, this is in verse 1, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as chief among the mountains. So essentially, among all the nations of the world, this is going to be chief. This temple is going to rise above it all. It says it will be raised above the hills, and the people will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And then what I didn't get into yesterday is it describes some of what will happen during this period of time when Jesus is reigning on the earth. It says he will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. So there's going to be a hunger and a natural gravitation towards God, towards Jesus, and living out the way that he dictates and the way that he guides us. It says the law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. So essentially what that's saying is around the globe, Jerusalem is the global leader.
Yeah.
That's essentially what that's saying. It goes on to say, they will beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation. And it goes so extreme, peace will be so extreme that nor will they train for war any longer. And to me, again, just time of peace on the earth. Mm-hmm. And then verse 4, every man will sit under his own vine and under his own fig tree, that no one will be afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. Total side note for verse 4 is it's also something Alexander Hamilton sings in the play Hamilton. So
you didn't jump in there,
yeah,
Caroline.
I was waiting on you.
I was going to sing it, but...
Go ahead. Listen,
no,
go for it.
I don't want to take focus.
So, yeah, so that's the way that what will happen during that period will be that, kind of in a macro level. But Pastor Jason, you and I were talking about this earlier, where the millennial reign's kind of introduced is throughout the prophets. It talks about it. Really, most of what will happen there is through Micah and other prophets. But Revelation chapter 20, it's sort of the bookends of that are mapped out. I think it's talked about like 6 times in that chapter.
Mentioned 6 times, and it specifically says the millennial reign, so the 1,000-year reign. And it's kind of funny that we always think about that as a term we see in the book of Revelation and a sign of the end times, but it's talked about more in the Old Testament than it is in the New Testament. So that's a great piece of little fun fact to jump into. But
let's talk about this for a minute, because it's pretty. If you've never read this, it's pretty gnarly. So we're gonna jump ahead to Revelation.
I'll say that this particular chapter is one of the reasons I kind of backed off of eschatology, like in my personal study, because I was like, well, there's a lot of symbolism here.
A lot there, yeah.
And I'm not really sure where to start, so I'm just going to dodge it for now, which is not the right approach.
No, it's real talk.
That's real though. Yeah, that's honest.
I'm the same way. Like Bible college, those kind of years, it was a course. It's not one I took because it feels like it's so layered.
Yeah.
And you just, it's just difficult to understand all the imagery. I feel like, and this may be misspeaking, you can correct me, but like end time study, eschatological study is more like, not opinion based, but there's more like a conjecture on what different images mean than almost anything else in the Bible.
And the other thing, to really get in depth to studying this, you have to become a scholar of the former culture because of the symbolism, because of the lines drawn, and it just more so in this kind of, because there's not that finish line where you see, oh, this is where everything makes sense and this is where I can really do some interpretation. No, it happens all through along. So I mean, if you're one of those that puts things on the wall, this is where you're going to have you're going to let conspiracy theory nut, because everything has a line to everything.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read a couple of verses here. This will be fun. So this is Revelation chapter 20, verse 1. This is really what begins the 1,000-year reign. Is the Bible says that I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss, which hell would essentially be kind of what he's referring to there, and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil or Satan. So, and I'll be transparent, when I first read that, I was like, wait, there's a dragon, there's a serpent, there's the devil, there's Satan. He's referring to all inclusive there, okay? So, but it's still just different. The description is different. So Satan, it says, will be bound for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked him and sealed it over to keep him from deceiving the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. So here's what I don't know is why.
Yep.
Like, I do, but I don't. Like, Satan is kind of kept at bay for 1,000 years. During that 1,000 years, all of the covenants and the promises that were made to Jesus, that were made to Jerusalem, the Jewish people, and the rest of the world will be fulfilled. What I don't know is why Satan has to be bound for that to happen instead of just defeated. There's probably some reason. I just don't know it.
Yep.
But that will happen. That's one of the reasons peace will reign on the earth, is because there's no one working against it. Yeah. And then Jesus will reign during that time. And then if you skip ahead to verse 7, it says that when the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the 4 corners of the earth. And then it uses the term Gog and Magog to gather them for battle.
There's sick names. That's awesome.
Awesome. Honestly.
Name my dogs that in the future.
Yes, please do that. Name your children that. Hey, come here, Magog. But Pastor Jason and I were joking. Like, in my mind, those are the 2 dogs from the movie Ghostbusters. That's what I think about.
The keymaster and the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it says that all of this will happen. The devil will be unleashed, and then eventually the devil is defeated, and that's when a new heaven and a new earth are created. And so it's a lot. There's a lot that goes on there. And to your point, Pastor Jason, some of it we get, some of it we don't. What we're trying to do is unpack it as we can when we get into these prophets.
Yeah, well, and some of the, I did look up a little, and there are a few guys that I've heard put a few things in the list, and just for the reason of the 1,000 years. And again, this is not definitive. A lot of this is speculation with leaning on who do you Like, what do you see that's more valid? And so some of the reasons that I saw were to reward the people of God for the 1,000 years of reign. Because it was something that was prophesied. It was rewarded, something people were looking forward to reward the people of God. It's also to respond to the prophet's predictions. Because again, that's kind of what we see, and even bringing it to where we are, even right now in the current climate of Israel, and everybody's like, free Palestine, or empower Israel, and when it comes down to it, there's a promise that was made over that land to a specific people thousands of years ago that God still hasn't fulfilled, and some people say, but He has. They got their chance, they got their time, and then there's some people say that well, He didn't. That time is over. Whenever Rome defeated them and they were dispersed, that was the end of those prophecies. Well, really, because we see Jesus, and everybody says, well, Jesus came and He set up the way He wanted His kingdom to run. Well, He didn't. He fulfilled one covenant that was promised in the Old Testament, and that was the new covenant. What we're waiting to see, even with the 1,000-year reign, is the fulfillment of the Davidic covenant. And that's the promise that He made to David, that there would be an earthly kingdom with Jesus as the head, as the king. And so that's what we're waiting to see. Now, where you fall in line with politically what's happening now, I'm not sure where you fall. I mean, for me personally, I still see a land that's promised to a certain people, and I'm watching and waiting to see what's going to happen next. I'm doing like the Bible says. I'm praying for the peace of Jerusalem, and that's about all we can do. But aside from that, there's going to be constant turmoil, just like you said. It started in the home of Jacob, and now it's continued throughout these thousands of years. And the other reason is, there are two other reasons for the millennial reign that what I see here is to reemphasize man's depravity and the necessity for Christ's death. So that's got to be the completion. But there is going to be chaos until we see Jesus as the Prince of Peace come back to reign over His kingdom.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, speaking of Jesus, we'll fast forward a little bit. Chapter 5, we talked about this briefly yesterday as well, but there's the prophecy that's made of how Jesus will be born onto the earth, be born in a town called Bethlehem, and that's talked about there. I love verse 2. It just says, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. And Pastor Jason and I were laughing about this earlier. There's a song we used to sing.
This is the point in the podcast when we bust out into song.
Yes.
So this was a song called Ancient of Days. It was actually the first song I ever learned on guitar that was like a worship song.
It's awesome.
Wait, what was the first song you learned on guitar? It's much more likely that I'm going to know that one than whatever you're about to sing.
Freebird, wasn't it? It was Freebird.
Actually, that was way too hard. I think the first song I actually learned on guitar was maybe a Beatles song from the album Rubber Soul. The second one was definitely Basket Case from Green Day. That was when I learned bar chords.
Those I know, but go ahead with whatever old stuff you're about to sing.
So, Ancient of Days. I'm not going to just sing it straight up, but I'm going to play it. I don't know.
And
how
there's
this
so
is
many
gonna
versions. This song has been recorded and re-recorded, but there is one staple version in my head.
And it's this
And
one.
Pastor Kevin, you just read my
Let's
my
go.
line.
Let's fast forward a little bit. Here we go. Oh, Ancient of Days.
Come on, Caroline. This is
Yes,
jump in.
Caroline. Sing it if you know it.
This is the Ron Canoli version.
A Ron who?
Ron Canoli.
Cannoli?
Cannoli. Not like the cannoli you're thinking of, but like, it's his last name. Be respectful. From every nation.
This was it. And I'm pretty sure we did this almost every Sunday for 6 months.
Yes. This is a 9-minute song because God deserves it. Give him your best, Caroline. Come on. So anyway, that's a little just, we'll just give you guys a little taste of that. Y'all can go experience it on your own if you want to.
Stuff. And Pastor Jeff's not here, so we had to bust out in the song because
so true.
normally this is where he would jump in.
He would still be singing for sure.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, so that's fun. So Ancient of Days.
Segue
So it
into-
promises.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about. We're talking about Jesus being born, right? So, so the prediction is made. I think it's 700 years. The prophecy is made. 700 years before Jesus is born. For me, if I were a skeptic of the Bible, like if I were a skeptic of just faith in general, and was Jesus the Son of God, that whole thing. This would be a passage that would impact me because, it's not lost on me that was fulfilled 700 years later. There's so much that had to happen, right? There had to be a census that was told to be, and so a carpenter had to take his wife who was pregnant from their home to Bethlehem. Like there's things in world government that had to happen for Jesus to actually, his parents to end up in Bethlehem. And so I would hear that and find some, at least have to like go, okay, the Bible's proving itself true. And I'd have to give some weight to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I it's just cool that it starts here because Micah was a contemporary of Isaiah. And this is when they would have really started looking for that Messiah. And so to see that kind of detail, I can't imagine. I'm the kind like, if you give me a little detail, I'm just all about it. And now I'm going to be looking for it everywhere. Yeah. And the fact that these guys wouldn't see it, that they're prophesying it, they don't get to see it, is crazy, especially when they have to wait so long. But I even look ahead to, there's a verse in chapter 6 that just kind of puts a little bit of that prophetic line kind of even more, I guess, in order for me. In chapter 6, and this is talking about the judgment of God, but it's the mentality behind it. It says, your rich are violent, your inhabitants are liars, and their tongues speak deceitfully. Therefore, I have begun to destroy you. And so I see like this language here. He says, I've begun to destroy you, to ruin because of your sins. And it's a steady progression. It's not like this one event. It's a steady progression. And I think that's where we even see like these prophecies coming in. There's this happening. It's going to continue to happen. But hold on, because there's hope. Jesus is coming. And by the way, there's going to be 1,000-year reign, and God's going to set up his kingdom. So we have to be on guard and look for it. There's so many little nuggets that Micah's giving. Yeah. And he's just ultimately throwing to the progression of God. That it's not just this one end-time event where we see this one apocalypse happening, but it's a progression. And I see it even as part of the progression of being a believer. Because, in the New Testament we find out we're supposed to die to our cross daily, pick up our cross and follow Jesus daily. So every day recommitting to the hope that we know in Jesus for what he even said in the Lord's Prayer, for today's blessings, for today's sustenance. And it's renewed every day.
It's good.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor Jason, you moved us into chapter 6, so we'll just kind of continue down that road. This is the last section of this book, which is the last 2 chapters, which kind of come back to that courtroom vibe. I spent a lot of time on this yesterday, so I won't go back and do it again. The short summary, essentially Micah, again, is God's mouthpiece. He's kind of representing God, if you would, in the courtroom, and God's case against the people. God, on God's behalf, essentially says, why have you not obeyed God? Why have you lived this way? And the people kind of come back to God. And some people read this as repentant questions that they ask the Lord, which is, well, should we worship more this way? Should we do more this? I read it because of the verdict that's handed down as a little more arrogant and sarcastic of like, well, should we do this? Well, should we do this? And so when God answers them, he answers them with what is arguably one of the more important verses in the Old Testament. It's definitely one of the more quoted. Says that in verse 8 of chapter 6, he has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. It's interesting. I told a story in the message over the weekend about a speeding ticket that I got. And,
that was awesome, by the way.
Yeah. And long story short, without going back through it, I got a speeding ticket. Thought I was going to prison for life, because I'm a worst case scenario person with that. And when I went to traffic court, when I went up to approached the bench, I had everything. Like I was ready. I think I had a manila folder, with like something printed off in it. And but I had my ticket. I don't even know what it was. It was just like,
just a piece of paper that says please.
Yeah. It was just random stuff. And so anyway, I go up and I go to give it to the person that's there who works for the district attorney's office. And it's a girl from our church. And I told everybody that as soon as I walk up, she said, "You're one of my pastors." And I said, "Yes, and you're one of my best friends." So anyway, super cool thing is I've not seen her at church because we're a church, for those of you who are not a part of Lifepoint, we have 4 campuses, so 4 locations in our city. One of my jobs is to kind of oversee all those campuses, so I bounce around typically on the weekend, and I'm not always at the same campus for more than a week in a row, 2 weeks in a row. So I didn't know, but she attends our broadcast campus, so where I was actually preaching live at. And after service, she said something to Pastor Matt, who's the campus pastor at that campus, and he found me. We connected. And anyway,
What are you going to get her for Christmas? You promised her a Christmas present.
No, exactly. I promised her a Christmas present, so now I got to deliver. And but anyway, she told me what was super cool is we laughed about it, and she actually said, she goes, I felt bad about that since, she goes, I felt like I was calling you out. And she grew up as a pastor's kid.
Oh, wow.
She was like, I would have hated if somebody called my dad out. And I was like, no, no, you're good. And but what was super cool is she says that, so we're in Wilmington, North Carolina, where our church is at, where this is filmed at. And she said that the district attorney's office motto or slogan, kind of unofficial slogan, is Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Oh, and I was like, how cool is that? First of all, it's cool, just coincidentally cool. But also, super cool that our government is bringing that. That's something awesome. That as a team they think about. So just kind of a pretty neat aside.
My biggest takeaway from that is that next time I get pulled over, assuming I get pulled over again, because my car also suffers from your car's problem. It goes too fast. Yeah, it's weird. Is that I should quote Micah 6:8 to them and see that.
Just walk up and go.
Put a bumper sticker on.
Our district attorney's office.
As you guys say.
Right.
And then you have to wink.
Yeah. That'll make it weird for sure.
The code.
The code, Yes.
So you know that.
Yeah, those movies I know.
I think that's the first movie reference I've ever made on this that Caroline actually knew what movie I was talking about.
Because it's not a boy movie or an old Christian movie, and I know Elf for sure. That's
awesome. So anyway, that was just kind of a cool aside.
That is cool.
But something that happens right after that in chapter 6 is the Lord essentially hands down punishment. Mm-hmm. And he says, okay, this is because you've not done this is what's going to happen. But what I appreciate, and this is, again, I feel like the message of every prophet at the end of the day, it's the message, anytime God speaks, he's a God of hope and restoration and relationship, and he wants that with us. And so Micah ends the way that it feels appropriate that it should. Micah's name means who is God or who is like God. And I feel like he ends in chapter 7, the latter part of chapter 7, almost with this tone of who is like the Lord. Mm-hmm. And he actually says that. See if I can find it right here now that I've said that out loud. Chapter 7, verse 18, mm-hmm. He says, who is a God like you, who pardons sin and forgives the transgression of the remnant of his inheritance? You do not stay angry forever, but delight to show mercy. You will again have compassion on us, and you will tread our sins underfoot and hurl all of our iniquities into the depths of the sea. You will be true God to Jacob. You will be true to Jacob and show mercy to Abraham, as you pledged on oath to our fathers in days long ago. What a great close to this book. I love the way that he ends it. I love that his name is even kind of tied in. I mean, all of it just feels so good to me that even when things are difficult, God is moving and there is hope.
Yeah, that's good.
So we historically in the past have done ads for different ministries that we have here at Lifepoint. And, because we do a lot and we want to make sure that people know, the people know about our small group ministry and our kids ministry and all that. But our fun producers here have decided that we should also talk about some other things. So we're going to take a second. We're going to have a moment for our ads, our unofficial sponsors. And we're going to see what's in this bag that we're going to promo.
All right. And we have not seen these.
We haven't seen these.
Okay.
And this
is a sick joke.
Speaking of getting canceled, I'm scared of what this is. I don't want to do that one. I want to do this one.
I don't know why, Caroline. I don't.
One of the boys should have gotten this one. Okay. So one of our unofficial sponsors, can you see that? Is a foam jet glider. So this is something you can collect them all. You put them together, and it will take you to new heights. You will soar. And, you can have high-flying fun. It's lightweight and easy to assemble. But this is, I don't know how to tie this in to Micah.
And it will last through any throw that you can make.
See, and honestly, who wouldn't want this?
Foam jet fighters. Great time and terrible for the environment.
There you go. All right, your turn.
Okay, so next. Yeah, I don't want to stay with. I know which one you got. I
Yep.
want to stay with for that too. Oh, good.
Oh.
Good. This is work. This segment is sponsored in part by Hertz Hamp Peas. Hertz brand ham peas. Hamp ease. Hamp ease. They are green split peas with ham flavor.
So what's funny about this is when y'all were talking about watching the like horrible movies that like scared you because, you know, they were talking about hell and all that. I was thinking, because I didn't come to know the Lord until later in life, so I was thinking about what scared me as a child was The Exorcist. And you know, you know what she spit everywhere? Pea soup. So this is not sponsored by The Exorcist.
Also
but
coming to a prop store near you. But this is also, I feel like I should do, this is ASMR. ASMR. Some people like this. I don't get it, but
I'm not some people.
are you comfortable with this?
I don't like that I can watch you do it. I think that's what's making me
I just like being this close to you when you whisper into the mic seductively. That's what I'm appreciating over here.
And funny enough, that's the part I like the least about that. All right, Pastor Kevin, this year.
Also, we've got a new setup this time on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so Pastor Jason and I are sitting on the same side of the booth. I don't know if y'all know this. I don't want to offend people, but there are two kinds of people in the world. There are the people who sit on the same side of the booth and the people who don't.
Yep.
And so
We are those people.
obviously we are those people who sit on the same
And
side.
I'm just along for the ride at the end of the table, I guess. Oh,
Ooh. So this is Crystal Heat Grease Clog Dissolver.
sick.
And this portion of the podcast is sponsored by this. And this is guaranteed to work or it's free. Brought to you by the fine people at Zep. This is for industrial clogs. It dissolves crystals. It's also safe for all pipes and septic systems. And the one thing that makes me feel safe about this product is the skull and crossbones that are on there. Just in case you didn't know
that's
that
the
you
fun
don't need
sticker.
to drink this.
Fun
skull and
sticker.
crossbones.
That just means it's fun.
It's fun.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
This is Crystal Heat for all of your clog needs.
Also, I think I should mention that if you use any of these products and are not satisfied with your experience, please don't tell us about it or come knocking on our doors
please
because
don't.
they're unofficial sponsors and we
Right.
didn't pick them. So
just contact let's pick a campus. We'll drive them to one of our campuses.
yeah, Carolina
Our,
Beach campus.
Carolina Beach campus.
Ask for
for all
Pastor Jen.
complaints.
She will be excited to hear about your issues with your ham-flavored pea soup. Yeah, she'll love that.
But if you have too much pea soup, you may need to unclog some stuff. I don't know.
I feel like the pea soup will unclog yourself. I think that
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, speaking of nonsense, and we're going right into nonsense, we do a segment as well. And if you guys ever have specifically Christian memes, because, you know, we got to keep it above board here. But if you have memes that you'd like to share, we do have a segment that's just called Biblical Nonsense. And we just talk about different memes because we all can admit Christians are a little weird. You know what I mean? Not all of us. Some of us. Some of us make it weird. You know, when you look at your sibling and you're like, just don't make it weird. Some people make it weird.
Or if you greet me with a holy kiss.
Nope.
Yeah, that's
Or
right.
honestly, if you just say holy kiss, I'm
Or
out
if
on
you
that.
sing the
Sick.
line sloppy wet.
Sloppy
kiss.
wet.
Sloppy wet kiss.
Okay, but unforeseen kiss is
Still.
also super weird.
So one will
I'm
get
team
you.
sloppy wet more than unforeseen. And I stand by that. Because sloppy
So
wet, at least you
unforeseen
see it
was
coming.
a correction at the time.
Yeah.
On
I-
sloppy wet.
Yep.
And so
Because apparently somebody was offended by sloppy wet.
I'm offended by both. Why? But that's my thing is like, who was like, let's take this back to the drawing board. Sloppy wet was a bad call. So what we're going to do is throw in unforeseen, which is, let's just all call it what it is. It's assault. We don't just kiss
let me
people.
just do what I do and just bring underlying perspective.
Oh, please.
Like the context of that situation wasn't some stranger sneaking up from behind and giving you a sloppy wet kiss, because that would be horrible. And it would still be assault, even if it was a sweet, unforeseen kiss. If you don't know the person, yes, both of those are pretty undesirable. But this is the context of you're in a relationship, you're with someone that you care about, and do you prefer sloppy and wet or unforeseen?
Well, Yeah, so moving on.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah. I feel like this whole podcast is just a series of weird segues.
This Sunday at Lifepoint Church, we will be singing.
Yeah. Listen, that was sad because I love that song. Okay, so we do have a few different memes. If for those of you guys that are watching, we're going to throw them up on the screen. But if you're listening, you can check them out. And also, if you see things that you want us to mention, or if you just have a funny meme, please feel free to DM us on Instagram. You can follow us at Lifepoint Now. On any kind of social media that's not lame. Are we on
Are we supposed
the
to have
lame
our
ones?
own Christian meme here? Are we supposed to do that?
We got a
I did
few.
not come
If you have a
prepared.
good one, yeah. If you
Okay, I
have
didn't
one.
show up.
If you have one, it's all right. If you don't, I have one that I probably have shared in the past because I just feel it completely. So it says, when you've got the joy, 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 joy down in your heart, but no one believes you because your face looks like this. And for those of you that are not able to see it, it's a little bird, and boy, is he frowning. And I feel like I really relate to this because someone just day before yesterday said, hey, your face is out loud. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Because let's just talk about why. Because I was at a wedding, and family member related, decided that at the reception of this beautiful wedding, it was like very classy, very sweet. A family member had just taken it upon themselves to buy an American Girl doll in the likeness of the bride without the bride and groom's.
That's always a great idea.
Yeah, and put it in a wedding dress and put it on the table with all the gifts. Oh. And so my friend instructed me that my face was out loud. So, because I was horrified. I hate a doll anyway. So anyway, so yeah, that's my meme.
Yeah, the one I have, I can kind of relate to because I just don't understand the need for all the different ones. But we do this in my home, and I always look at my kids and I'm like, really? And so this is saying, God, what are they doing down there? And the angel says, they're making milk from almonds. And God says, what? I gave them like 8 animals to get milk from. And the angel said, well, they don't like that milk. And God's like, what? I get that because we've been through that same process. We've tried cow's milk. The kids won't do goat's milk because it sounds weird to them. And we have rested on almond milk, which I'll drink it all. I'm not bothered by any of it, but it is weird. Like, it's just weird to get milk from an almond. Like, how do you milk an almond?
How do you milk an almond?
I think we're all thinking the same movie quote, and none of us are going to say it. If you're thinking the same movie quote, you can drop it in the caption with no context.
And no, you can't milk me.
Milk a cat?
Yeah, just little milk. Not the hand motion.
So, all right. All right, so here's mine. It's 4 different people's faces on it. They kind of look sad. One of them's faking a smile. Anyway, it says, when the weird lady at church tries to rub essential oils on my broken arm. Because they heal everything, right? They heal everything. Anyway, I've never been an essential oils guy, so.
Me neither. I do like to call it witchcraft just to watch white people's heads spin around.
Hilarious.
Ladies are like,
hilarious.
they're really biblical. And
So here's another one. This is funny. Can I do 2?
Of course.
Definitely.
There's no rules here.
This is because Halloween just ended, and I just think it's awesome. These are Spirit Halloween costumes. Okay.
Sweet. Yeah.
Fantastic. The first one is the crazy Christian ant. Here's what's included in this costume: a full-length skirt, a sassy cardigan, Earl Grey tea.
Yes.
Does not include conspiracy theories or 12 cats. And then here's the next one. This is my favorite. This is legalistic Leonard. This is his costume. All right. It includes 1611 KJV Bible, a styrofoam coffee cup, gray hair dye, and Velcro shoes. Does not include his wife Edna.
Oh, sorry to any Edna.
Or a look of disapproval. So good.
Oh,
all right.
Man, that's
These
good.
are great.
That's a good one.
That's good stuff.
All right, well, our next segment, we're going to get back into something a little bit more, spiritual, because it feels right. Then we'll get back into something crazy at the end. But we do a segment here, and we're
Go
in
ahead, Caroline. You take
season
issue with it.
5. I'm gonna bring it up yet again because I do not approve of this name. My stamp of approval is not on this name. I think it's gross. It makes me think of poop. But the name of it is the doggy bag.
Oh, the doggy
It's
bag.
not a fiery doggy bag.
It makes me think of Billy Madison. Some kids left poop again. You know what I mean? Like on the, I get.
It's out of control. Don't put it out with your boots, Ted.
How many times can we say poop on this? For the rest of this episode, poop.
Just slip it in.
Multiple times.
Little
That's
poop.
the second movie. We both.
Yep.
We're 2 for 2. Well, we're not 2 for 2. We're 2 for like 140.
You know what else is two? Poop.
Poop.
There you go. See.
I've heard
Number
it's also
two.
3
All right,
and
we're
2.
gonna get like a little poop counter, and it's gonna like
Yes.
tick every time. So
This section
whoever
is
does
all-
Oh, and it'll be
called-
Mr. Hanky as the little hash mark.
Christmas poop. Amazing.
The Christmas poop. Hey, it is the season.
Fa la 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 la.
It is
This
Thanksgiving.
is how we ring in the Christmas season.
Oh boy, oh boy.
I love it. Christmas poop. Poop of the day. What is this? Doggy bag?
The doggy
of
bag.
poop?
It's
So
just your takeaway.
it's about like it's
What are you
you know
taking
it's like what do you
home?
take because I always ask for a little box at a restaurant, so it's what you take home. I get that, but that's not what it sounds like to me. But anyway, let's rein it back in. So basically, your takeaway. So Pastor Kevin, you mentioned that you broke down Micah 6:8 as like the takeaways for the message. And I got a chance to be at one of our campuses yesterday, and I was talking about how you referenced Matthew 5 and talking about being the light. And that actually was a verse of the day yesterday on the YouVersion app. And so I had been reading it that morning. Well, it was verse 14, and you referenced verse 16, but I was like, same thing. But, I appreciated that whenever you were tying in, walking humbly with the Lord, it really, it's really what it is to be a Christian. I appreciate things in the Bible that take big things and kind of dumb them down for people like me that are like, okay, but what do I do with this? What do I actually need to do? It's I need to act justly, I need to love mercy, and I need to walk humbly with my God. And so I appreciated that it's hey, your purpose is to be light in the world, and so that through my good deeds that the Lord gets glory and other people see that.
Great.
I appreciated that takeaway of it was okay, feels like something that I can do. So
Like that.
that was a good one. Thank you for that. Who else? Who else has a takeaway?
So my takeaway is it's just a little different, just from between hearing your message yesterday, PK, and then just kind of going back through some notes when we were talking about end times. And so my mind just starts to go wide, and looking at the first part of the theme when Micah's prophecy really brings back the heart of unifying the nation of Israel. And so I read in chapter 6 where it says, one of the reasons we see this judgment being pronounced, and we start to see over time it'll be the progressive destruction of Israel. He says, "You have observed the statutes of Omri and all the practices of Ahab's house. You have followed their traditions. Therefore, I will give you over to ruin and your people to derision." I'm not really sure what that word is. "You will bear the scorn of the nations." And so, first of all, as a believer, I'm reminded that because of transgression, because of violating a trust with our God, there has to be a tear down. But we see God's going to spend years and years and years tearing down, breaking down, separating the nation of Israel. But then we also see his promise to restore them as a nation, as one nation, as his people. And that's even the promise that I see we're holding on to now. But even as a believer, whatever God tears down, he does so justly, but he will build back up, and he can make it better than it was before. Right. As we see represented in the 1,000-year reign, it will be better than it was before. Israel will be highlighted. They will be lifted among all the nations. And it does speak to now, because whether you're for the government, the current government of Israel or not, it's still a land that was promised to God. They were still attacked by terrorists, and some of the language there even gets me with, I know the word Palestine. It was given by the Romans, and it means people of the Philistines. And to me, these are identities that are enemies of God. And when it comes down to it, anything that's not of God is an enemy of God. And so I see him eventually, he will restore that land, whether it's now or in years to come. But I just see him restoring a people just like he's restored me to him. And so I love seeing that theme, and I like that Micah kind of hits it all the way through. So that was kind of my big takeaway, was there is reconciliation, but there's also a build back, and there's a foundation found on his love.
That's really great. That's great. Mine comes out of chapter 5. So this is something I just, didn't have time to get to. It probably just wouldn't have made it into the message, even if I did. But it was after the prophecy's given that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. It kind of gives some just description, it fleshes that out a little bit. And in verse 4, it speaks this of Jesus. And I read this as, it's again, one of those near future, far future. It's he will rule this way. But for my life, for our lives, he does rule this way. Mm-hmm. And it says, he will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord. And I love this because I think this is what all of us around the table, all of you who follow Jesus and have surrendered your life to him, I hope this is what you feel and experience. And they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth, and he will be their peace.
That's good.
I like in my Bible, I circled the word live securely and their peace.
That's good.
Because of who he is, because of not just the fact that he reigns, but the way that he reigns.
Yeah.
We can have that. We can have confidence and courage and security and calm in the middle of chaos. So for me, that's just like a personal takeaway.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot.
That's good. Well, I think we're here at the end of our podcast today, but we used to have a segment called Cringe the Bible.
I do have a cringe.
I have a cringe too, and I was like, I'm not going to put you guys on the spot. Yeah, because if you have mine, I don't have another one. So we're just going to hit Cringe the Bible really quick because this is, to me, one of my favorite parts. Because, the Bible is great and we love it, but also there's some parts that go, that's a little cringy. So chapter 3, starting in verse 1, said, Then I said, listen, you leaders of Jacob. Pastor Kevin, you read this a little while ago. Mm-hmm. You rulers of Israel, should you not embrace justice? You who hate good and love evil, who tear the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones. So that to me is like, if you ended there, it's like, ooh, that's a good visual of like, man, you really, yeah, but no, he continued. Who eat my people's flesh, strip off their skin, and break their bones in pieces. No, and you're like, oh,
I know, we're getting
like,
good.
Boy, okay, all right, well, nope, still not done. Who chop them up like meat for the pan, like flesh for the pot. And I'm like, okay, all right, got that visual. Thank you very much. Super cringy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I cringed there, and I was like, it's actually kind of cool, kind of gross, which I feel like is the perfect cringe spot.
It's always cool. The cringe stuff is always cool.
You don't have that one tattooed as your life verse on you very often, do you?
No regrets.
Is that a dare?
Hey, my life verse is who chopped them up like meat for the pan, like flesh for the pot. I've got it.
If we had Pastor Dan with us, we could have him make a song. Maybe we'll do that because sometimes whenever he's one of our worship pastors here, and whenever we bring him on, we make him sing different terrible verses of.
Hey, I feel a little offended. Like we brought you some pretty good music.
That's true. Well,
I'm proposing a new segment.
Oh.
What 90s country song does this book of the Bible remind you of? I think it would be the most creative segment. It doesn't have to be 90s. It could be just country song in general.
Can it just be 90s song?
I guess if you need that much bandwidth.
I do, because 90s country is not my genre. Like it's just.
But it could be. It could be.
I don't hate it, but
it could be.
Okay, what was your cringe?
Okay, so my cringe was like it. I mean, it kind of stems from the fact Micah is also known as the. He's referred to as the naked prophet. And so, and he even says it in chapter 1, verse 8. It says, Because of this I will weep and wail. I will go about barefoot and naked. I will howl like a jackal and moan like an owl.
That sounds like a Friday night at my house. My wife, this is when she turns the podcast off.
Sorry, Melissa.
We weep and wail. We walk around naked and we howl like jackals. That's Friday night. I mean, that's a good marriage. You want to keep a marriage healthy?
Oh,
Melissa and I are starting a marriage ministry. It's built on that.
That's marriage
verse.
goals. You know you're winning.
Jackals.
Awesome.
You know you're winning. I can't imagine driving through neighborhoods around Pine Valley. We'd hear,
ow, ow.
Hey,
Is that how a jackal sounds?
That's not a coyote.
I'm not sure that's a jackal.
I don't know how they sound. I'm guessing on a jackal.
I don't know if you're trying to do a jackal or whatever.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just know howling.
All right. Yeah. Do you name yourself the naked prophet, or does somebody else? That's something somebody else.
He was known as the naked prophet.
So other people called him that.
That's a good question. Like, how did they land that? Like, could we just name ourselves something?
Sure. What would you name yourself?
The Jackal Preacher.
I would.
I'm in. Howling like a jackal.
The jack-o'-lantern.
That's a song. The jack-o'-lantern. Every Halloween we go into a season. The jack-o'-lantern. Drive through my neighborhood Friday night.
Great. Oh, man.
And that's why we do Cringe the Bible.
Yep. So that we can cringe and make you cringe too.
Right.
Though we do, if you ever have questions, we'd love to, we talk about inquiring minds, things like that. You can email questions into podcast@lifepointnow.com. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment what your favorite part was, comment any cringes you might have had from our time here together today. But guys, this is season 5. We're excited about the rest of what's coming up. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.
Here we go. Let's play it out the right way. Y'all ready?
Oh, boy.